According to the same McKinsey report that I shared with you all earlier, 3 in 20 LGBTQIA plus women believe that their sexual orientation will negatively affect their career advancement at work. For the LGBTQIA plus men, this number is even higher at 6 in 20, which really speaks to a lot of what Mark just shared with us. Compared with straight women, the LGBTQIA plus women are also more likely to report that their gender has played a role in missing out on a raise, promotion, or a chance to get ahead. Despite these challenges, the LGBTQIA plus employees are just as likely as their straight counterparts to aspire to be top executives. Our next speaker is a leader in talent acquisition space and has years of experience working on strategy, management, and operations supporting Ralph Lauren's global employees. He is here to speak with us on the talent acquisition pipeline, representation resources, as we consider the LGBTQIA plus members in the workplace. Ernest Adams holds a bachelor's in industrial engineering and management sciences from Northwestern University. Over the course of his career, he has held progressive roles in human resources within the life sciences, medtech, retail, and pharmaceutical sectors. In 2020, Ernest joined Ralph Lauren with global responsibility for the enterprise's talent strategy, which includes strategic oversight of talent acquisition, talent management, talent operations, learning and development, performance management, early career talent programs, and enterprise mentoring. In this role, the work is focused on a renewed, refreshed, and holistic view of talent for the global organization and its 20,000 employees. Welcome, Ernest. We welcome you to the virtual space. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Selma. I'm excited to be here with you.
Thank you. And we have to kind of call it out. We love your attire and we love your background. Can we get that collar? If I had that shirt, I would wear it too.
Absolutely. Well, you two can have it. You two can have
it. I love it. I want to start by talking about you, Ernest, the man. I mean, and then we'll dig into all of the responsibilities and the professional experience, and really looking at the intersection. How do you incorporate the intersection of your identity and experience as a Black and gay man in corporate America in the vast work that you do? And how has that really shaped your current role?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing, look, I've spent 44 years in the body of a Black gay man. So, for me, it is owning my space every day and fully recognizing where my power comes from. And my power comes from people like Marsha P. Johnson and my ancestors, and standing on their shoulders firmly and recognizing, I mean, on the weekend of Juneteenth, I can't help but to recognize and say that I stand on the shoulders of great people. And so if it was not for them, I would not be where I'm at. And if it's not for me, then I look at my nieces and nephews and I look at my family to understand how they are going to be able to climb and grow their careers. So for me, it is recognition of privilege. And that to me comes with a responsibility to continue to pave the way forward.
I love that. Give me more, Ernest. I want to hear more about how you go about in your current role and recognizing that intersection too. I mean, it's a lot. You're head of talent acquisition. I mean, you're responsible for all the talent that comes in.
Yeah. I mean, look, for me, it is Ernest equals a Black gay man. And so therefore there is no separation, right? So every day as I'm showing up, authenticity for me is super important. I mean, early on in my career, my brother gave me some fantastic advice. And that advice was, as long as you can look at yourself in the mirror every single day and you like the person looking back at you, then you are on a path that works for you. And so I've been on a search to recognize my purpose. And I truly understand that my purpose is to use my platform to make sure that those who don't have a voice at the table. And that for me really is something that I carry forward every single day. And so, there's no secret sauce other than just me absolutely being authentic to who I am.
Authenticity and intentionality to make sure that you represent, fully. I love that. Absolutely. So let's dig into your talent acquisition, with that experience that you've got in this space, lots of experience in this space. What are your opinions of these, pre-programs that that targets specifically early stage disadvantaged talent as a way to for the organizations to express their support and acceptance of these groups. And I'm just going to give some examples for our viewers here, right? Some examples of these programs include the Spotify's HBCU Roadshow targeting undergraduate HBCU and predominantly Black students. Another example is McKinsey's GLAM Undergraduate Leadership Summit, which supports McKinsey as a place that attracts, supports, respects, and retains talent, through the lesbian, gay, bisexual, queer, and transgender professionals. And there's so many more. How do you think these efforts can be more authentic, and what's your view on them?
Yeah, look, I think the first thing that I hold very near and dear to my heart as I think through looking at these organizations is to understand what's real and what's not real, right? There's a lot of fake DEI out there, particularly as we look at the last couple of years. Organizations will slap a DEI title on things as a way to appease white guilt. And so I think it's really, really important that as leaders in companies, we're asking the questions of saying, what are these programs truly looking to do? I think if they are not teaching and allowing queer youth how to recognize and understand heteronormative oppression, then that is something that needs to be questioned. If they are not helping queer youth to understand the power of those who've come before us and how the systems of oppression have consistently stripped away recognition of who we are, then that's super important. If they are not really looking and saying the importance of networking and building community and reaching back into the community, then I would question what is the real purpose of these groups. But I will say that for as much as I question, I also recognize that there are a lot of these organizations and these groups that are really holding space for those who have not had access before to really create and have that access. And so I say kudos, but I just say look out for false marketing and ask questions.
I love it. Look for the realness in it. I love it. It's very true. I mean, and everyone is at a different place in their journey of DI, right? I mean, it's become a trend, right? But in all reality, it's something that everyone needs to work on at companies, workplaces all around the board. But you're right. You question and then you challenge. I love every challenge that you've shared with us here as we think forward and analyze what companies are doing. Let's talk about your talent team. Is your talent team at Ralph Lauren? Ralph Lauren is such a huge brand, so it's fascinating to look within that. Are they prepped on using inclusive language during like the hiring process? And you don't have to limit it to just Ralph Lauren, but maybe even from your past experience. And we're talking specifically about using inclusive language on job postings and the interview questions during the interview. Is this something that you recommend for them, or y'all currently practicing it? And what can you share with us?
Yeah, I would say at a minimum, right? That stuff that companies should be doing, that to me is table stakes at this point. But I take a step back and I say, as leaders of this space, whether it be of talent acquisition teams, of leaders, it is our roles to remove obstacles that enable the teams to do the work that they need to do. And what that means is having the tough conversations inside the organization with the legal team, having a tough conversation with the organization with the senior executive team about once my team has identified the talent, how are our hiring managers showing up? How are we ensuring that in those conversations, we are absolutely supportive of who they are? But I would also say what's really important is who is on your team, right? So if your team is made up of a bunch of cis hetero individuals, then you're going to have a very difficult time attracting homosexual, transgender individuals, right? I mean, I firmly believe that like attracts like. And that is you can't dispute that. So I think looking at who's on your team, ensuring that you're removing obstacles for the team to do good work. And then at a minimum, ensuring that you're consistently having conversations with them to upskill, create a space for them to say the wrong things, create a space for them to feel uncomfortable and grow to a level of comfort. And that is by putting articles and having discussions. I think there's a lot of different ways to do it, but that has to be a constant practice for the teams.
That representation and education, right? We're constantly, even at Yardstick Management, that's the first thing we ask. Well, who's doing the interviews? Is there's someone that represents that candidate within that interview process? Like, how can they feel safe and connected if they're not necessarily being represented? Right. And so that is key, and that is great advice. And I'm glad we're sharing that here with our audiences of thinking through this. Help us also understand, at what level do you integrate that process of like DEI in general. I mean, it could be very specific also to our LGBTQIA plus community members in particular, but
Mhm.
how do you integrate that into the DNA of that process?
Yeah, look, when I came into Ralph Lauren, I would say this. My last role, I was the chief diversity officer, right? So I spent a
Yeah.
lot of time in this space, and then I integrated into the space. But to me, DEI is not vertical; it's horizontal. And what I mean by that is it's not something that stands alone by itself. It is something that needs to be woven into the foundation of every single process. And so to me, it is we went on a process to reset all of our processes and look at diverse slates, right? How do we, that's just a metric, that's table stakes, right? Those things are, and our system has to be set up in a way by which diverse slates are tracked. We have to be set up in a way to understand what our diverse hiring targets and metrics are and what that looks like. How do we become vocal about our commitments? All these things are incredibly important. And so we need to make sure that it is not something that's an afterthought, but it is foundational.
I love that. That's great insight. It's fascinating to also see your progression as you move from, you're not moving from, you're really integrating what you've done, the DEI into the talent acquisition, and Ralph Lauren is quite lucky to have you there. But I want to take from that and really pull in some more advice from you, right? As we're nearing kind of the end of our segment.
Yeah.
How can companies, and they're here with us right now, how can companies create a culture that is inclusive and safe and welcoming, and that also attracts and allows members of the LGBTQIA plus community to bring their truly authentic selves, like you are, to work every day? And more importantly, what is the role of the leadership in this space? You mentioned it briefly earlier, so let's dig a little deeper there.
Yeah. The first thing, the key phrase for me is every day, right? Do not just stick a pride banner during the month of June on your logo and think that that is enough to make sure that people are going to feel safe, right? Every day, how are you talking and ensuring that your queer employees understand that this is a space for them? Are you holding courageous conversations in the month of March or in the month of November that are based on LGBTQIA topics? Are you really telling the stories inside the company to allow the leader space to build empathy, right? I'm a big proponent of empathetic leadership. And that is the only way that we can move the needle. People have to have the space to learn, to bump their heads, and to understand that we're humans. And so our brains are built to be biased. And unless we do the work to recognize that bias is going to exist, and just because I have a biased thought doesn't mean I'm a bad person, then we are never going to truly move the needle. And that to me is the most important piece. But I think this whole piece around recognizing that I am Black and I am LGBTQI plus every day, not just during February or June, and that you speak to me every single day through the lens of those intersectional dimensions.
That is like spot on. I love that. I love that. I mean, it's also recognizing the value of the employees every single day and making sure that we retain them, right? It's, you don't want to just kind of act on one moment or at the beginning or at the end or on in June. So I love that. That is comprehensive advice. Ernest, thank you so much for your time and your commitment and efforts. Really appreciate talking with you today.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.